thanks for taking the time to speak to us. I really appreciate that. So I just want to get a feel like, what's it like in your office this week with 2 weeks until launch? What are the final things that you're working on, like gearing up for launch?
So a lot of what we're doing right now is optimization and content for future patches. And you can check out like Reddit right now. You can check out our forums and stuff like that. We've been doing updates for drivers for a myriad of stuff. We're gonna have like 40 fixes in at launch. So really, what a lot of it is like trying to increase people's frame rate and making sure that bug fixes are pretty much in. But right now, the way that I look at it is it's like the butterfly effect. We don't really want to touch too much stuff because if you fix one thing in the build that's going to go out, it could break like two other things, and
Yeah.
then catastrophic failure ensues. So
Uh-huh.
we're trying to touch too much stuff because of the butterfly effect. But yeah, a lot of it is just making sure that the optimization is up to date, and we're doing future content right now. So
Mhm.
month after month we have new stuff coming in. So it's kind of a mix. And then also everybody's hair is on fire with different things going out, open beta being live and getting
Yeah.
fixes that, and just trying to make things better that way.
Mhm.
And we had the name thing that just went down, which was lovely. Where we had basically
Hey,
deal with
hey, you guys recovered, and they loved the response that you're giving them the free what's called boom boxes.
the
So
boom boxes. Yeah, we put out the freaking awesome video. That just happened to time like perfectly because we were gonna put that out anyway, and then we're like, well, we need to give people something,
yeah.
like we dropped the ball, like that was
Uh-huh.
us. So yeah, we're like, we'll give everybody, and it's not even just like people that had problem with their name registration. It's like everybody basically that was signing up for
Yeah.
uh, Reg is gonna get that. So
Hmm. Well, you mentioned Reddit and that people were having some problems with the optimization, the drivers, and even on nice gaming rigs. Is another thing that is mentioned as concern is concern over like the first 15 to 20 levels. How the game takes a while to get going, or the tutorial is a bit bland for them. So like people will rave about the game to one of their friends, and then they'll hop in and they won't even last to like level 10. They're not giving it the chance because it's just not appealing to them. Are you doing anything to address those concerns, or?
well, we kind of went through this happened fairly recently where we started adding in these more hardcore mobs that are in the area.
Mhm.
So we did this pass where it was literally the entire game, which is another like, oh my gosh, this is risky because we're changing these things so close to launch. But we put in these higher level mobs so that when you're fighting through an area, if you see this big badass mob and you're level 6 or 7 or something like that, and that mob is effectively like a level 10 or something, you're
Mhm.
kind of like, okay, I'm a badass, I'm going to do that. And when you take down that mob, that gives you a lot more XP to advance fast, so you get rewarded for it. So we were doing things like that. But, I totally hear where people are coming from on that.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people on Reddit too are typically hardcore gamers, right?
Yeah.
I don't. It's very rare that you find like super casual gamers that are like, yeah, I go onto Reddit and update it all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, so the when you're making an MMO, it's a huge undertaking, and there are multiple demographics.
Mhm.
So there are those hardcore raiders out there that are 1% badasses, and they're like, this content's too easy. But
Yeah, where they don't
it's
necessarily need to have their hand held through the first like 5 levels.
right. But then there are gamers out there who are just getting like this might be their first MMO experience. And if
Yeah.
you're just getting into an MMO versus, playing a console game or something like that,
Mhm.
it's a huge difference. And so we have to get some of those people in there to try out the content and be like, oh, this telegraph thing, oh, dodging, okay, oh, I can double jump, like I can do all these things. I have inventory things I need to worry about. There's a ton of stuff that we're trying to teach the player. So I hear where they're coming from as somebody who likes to play games that are difficult and
Yeah.
having a challenge. So we try to throw in those mobs to be a little bit more entertaining in that regard.
Mhm.
So hopefully it works. We'll see what hits the fan, but that's kind of what we were doing to address it.
Okay. Racial bonuses.
Yeah,
No racial bonuses.
no racial bonuses.
So is there
No.
a reason that you guys don't have racial bonuses? Like, what's the thought behind that?
The thought process was that it's another thing to balance, and it's another concern that if we throw in another option to have something that maybe is more overpowered,
Mhm.
or, like all Granoks are mercenary badasses, therefore they can take more damage or something like that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because they have rock skin or something. Well, then people are like, well, if I'm a tank, obviously I have to roll Granok.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way that works. I think that was the major thought process behind that. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
another thing that we would have to worry about balancing against when we already have things like, you know, ability tiering and
Yeah.
amps and, you know, classes themselves. And then path abilities too. There are path abilities that you can get and use. That's a lot of stuff to think about. And I think when we looked at those, we were like, we don't want to have somebody just go, well, I don't want to have to pick this because it's
Yeah.
the best for my playstyle. I think it was more of a, when you're picking a race, it's more of a, I like this because it looks badass,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sort of mentality, rather than I have to play this because this is my playstyle.
Why are classes race specific then?
Do you want the lame answer? The lame
Yeah,
answer
sure.
is time. You know, it's
Okay.
like we had a certain amount of time that we could get certain classes in. It was like, okay, well, our animators move through a race and class
Mm-hmm.
at X amount of time. We have, you know, X amount of races and classes. This is what we can do in this amount of time. We made sure that humans, which are the most popular, you know, race picked often,
Uh-huh.
we made sure that every single class was available to human, just
Mm-hmm.
because of that specific reasoning. But when it came down to it just came down to time.
Okay.
It's not to say that at a later point in time we couldn't make a Chua warrior, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a thing that people often go, you know, like I want to have my little furry bastard with a gigantic, huge ass
Yeah.
sword swinging around. There are people here that were like, dude, Chua warrior, like lobbying for these things. But it's really the production of it. It's just time.
Yeah.
So we'll see in the future. I can't make promises as to when we'll do that. Because it also then becomes what's more important, adding these classes onto other races or having new things available for new classes or new
Yeah.
class types, or, you know, it's a lot of decision making based off of what we think will work best for players.
There's a lot of like I guess smaller ease of life stuff that people have been asking for, like a sell junk option.
Yeah.
What's the odds of small features like that coming within like the first couple content patches?
So for that one in particular, I don't know. I haven't been working with the UI guys as much.
Uh-huh.
We all agree that, you know, there are things like that that are super awesome and useful and helpful. But again, it comes down to my fun answer of production, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what are the things that are broken right now in the game versus what are the things that never made it into the game versus the quality of life stuff that you're talking about. It's like, there are things, you know, I think part of the frame rate, some of those frame rate issues has been some of the UIs are not optimized, right? So you'll have like group frame stuff that was problematic before and making stuff chug. And it's like, well, we can fix that, or we can add in a new feature which could introduce new bugs, which would, you know, then delay from getting those other things fixed. It's just a matter of priorities and getting that stuff set up. And they are, you know, one of the more impacted teams that we have because MMOs are a lot of UI, like a lot. It's not like a shooter or something like that where everything is kind of in the gameplay field and occasionally you get little messages that kind of pop up here and there. But I mean, whether it's trade skills or, you know, whether it's grouping stuff or whether it's your class abilities or, you know, all these sort of things depend heavily on UI. And so it's probably one of our more impacted teams. And so, you know, I don't want to say that you won't see quality of life stuff coming in at a later point in time. I just can't make any promises as to when those things are. And also coming from an ignorant standpoint of I don't work with that team as much. So I can find out. But as of right now, I wouldn't be able to give you a solid answer on that.
Okay, gotcha. So that first post-launch content update, that's pretty much all set. Like you guys know what's going into that, right?
Yes.
And I'm assuming there'll be that launch day patch too. It's fix like stuff like the optimization.
Yep. I mean, make no mistake, we're expecting things to blow up significantly on launch day. Like there's going to be crazy stuff we're not prepared for. I mean, I have friends that work on World of Warcraft, and I'm talking with them right now, and they're like, "Oh yeah, man. I mean, we know going in that we have to make time for things exploding and reacting to things, and those guys have been making MMOs now for, you know, it's been 10 years, I guess, right? So I mean, we're coming at it from the same perspective of we know things are going to blow up and we're going to have to react to those accordingly.
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to like the patch stuff, a lot of that has been done for a long time, and that was kind of the plan. If speaking of other games as well, if you look at like League of Legends, it's not like they're working on their champion right before it launches. It's like they have a cadre of champions that they have kind of ready to go and put out there. And we had to do the same thing effectively with our content. So there needs to be zones that are being worked on continuously, and PvP maps and dungeons and all these different things. And basically we just looked and said we want an expansion's worth of content over the span of a year and a half, rather than let's wait a year and then dump a bunch of stuff. Just because people, if they're not entertained all the time in a subscription game, they're gonna leave. So we had to do that that way, and I think it's cool because I think it's also a fair thing to charge a subscription for if you're getting stuff regularly.
Yeah.
So
especially every month, like that's a huge undertaking. So
it's a huge undertaking, and I think Mike D said it the other day when we were in a live stream. He's like, go look at our website right now. We're still hiring a lot of people because we want to maintain this, and we want to make sure that when people play this game, they're like, yeah, this is a quality game where I'm getting stuff at a regular pace.
Okay. Speaking of Mike Donatelli, when we had that event in California, I asked him about guild housing, and he said to me there's a reason why there's multiple houses floating up there in the sky.
Right.
And that's all he said. He wouldn't say anything else.
Yeah.
Are you going to be a good friend and elaborate on this? Or?
The marketing guy behind the camera is like, nope.
Okay.
Sorry.
Who's behind the camera? I gotta talk with him.
So I will say that we're looking at a lot of stuff post launch and what we can do. This certainly will not be anytime soon. We've been thinking about like how we can do stuff like that, but can't make any promises or say anything in particular. But we've heard a lot of people go, guild housing would be freaking awesome, or guild neighborhoods, where you have multiple people around these things. So we hear you.
Okay.
But I can't say anything exact or anything like that for anytime soon.
Well, at least it's promising. It's in there, hopeful for the future.
It's not. Well, I also just say it's promising, not promised.
No. Yes.
But
we'll make that clarification.
Yeah.
Let's move into more like bringing new players to WildStar, because I'm pretty sure everyone already playing the beta and that has been playing it, they're going to buy the game. They're going to subscribe, or they already have it pre-ordered. What do you think is the hardest thing about WildStar that new players, that might prevent them from like really getting into it?
So here's my honest answer. The hardest thing I think right now is that we've had a lot of years of not good MMOs or okay MMOs, or like MMOs that are good for like a month and then that's it. So right now we have a lot of players that have this, sort of jaundiced eye towards MMOs in general. So, you're coming out with something, and you can actually see this too. I think publishers feel the same way. Like I said this on one of the panels at PAX East. Aside from EQ Next and ArcAge, I can't really think of another AAA MMO that's coming out in the
Totally right.
And I think that's because publishers lost faith in the ability for MMOs to be like giant successes, and I think players have too, because they've been given a lot of stuff that when WoW came out, people are like, oh my god, we need to do this. You're seeing this with Minecraft now too. There's a lot of games that are like, we need to make games like Minecraft, and they're not like Minecraft, or they're not particularly good. And so I think you'll see the same sort of boom thing with that sort of demographic. So the hard part, for at least from my perspective, this is just me, is convincing people that the game doesn't suck. And that, like, it's like, you may have not heard of this. It's like, we're an MMO, and you'll see some people go like, oh, and it's like, no, but it's not crappy. It's awesome. It has this really cool combat, and it's got this epic housing system, and it's got all these cool things, but it's getting past that initial like, I don't know.
So 2 weeks before launch, what's your number one biggest concern right now, and what is the number one thing going swimmingly? Like, all right, yeah, we got that nailed.
The number one thing for me is getting as much of the game optimized as possible.
Okay.
Like we're trying to get. You'll notice like week after week, there are more people going like, "Oh, dude, my frame rate's freaking awesome." Now it was 40 frames a second, now it's 60 frames a second. And, we're moving it up. So optimization is kind of key, and our programming team has been on this like crazy. So I think they're actually doing a pretty good job, but it's still something that concerns me because some people are like, "Oh, I'm on a higher end machine, I'm not seeing this," or I have this set of drivers and it's making my game crappy, and we have to react to those things. So we're trying to react as best as we can. So that's the thing that is the most concerning to me, to make sure that we optimize for everybody.
Yeah.
The thing that's going the most swimmingly, people that are playing the game seem to be having a good time with it. I mean, there's always people that are going to be like, "Well, this game sucks," whatever, and then kind of bail out. But for the most part, the reaction has been really positive on stuff. And what's crazy to me is the reaction in the press has been super positive. We're seeing streamers playing through, and it's funny watching people that have been playing other MMOs for years and years and years get in and play WildStar, and they're like, "Whoa, this is way different." There was, I think it was like I was watching Soda Pop In or something the other day, and he was streaming it, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you can double jump?" Oh my god! Like he spent like 5 minutes ranting on the fact that you could just double jump. Like, dude, if that's what's blowing your mind, just wait till you get into dungeons. It's gonna be insane. So that to me is like the coolest thing, like seeing streamers get in and actually having a really good time. And that also is a great tool for converting people that were like, "I don't know, it just looks like a normal MMO to me," and seeing that these are people that were just like, play the game and check it out and give us your honest opinion. And usually streamers are pretty good about giving their honest opinion. So if they're having a good time, that's a great sign to me.
Was that you really playing the drums in the DevSpeak?
It was really me. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Really?
Yeah, I might have to do like a Vine or something, because some dude was calling me out. He's like, "I don't believe it. Your arms are not big enough to play drums like that." I was like, "What?
Wait,
you don't have to have
arms aren't big enough?
Play drums." Yeah. But yeah, no, that's actually from my band about 6 or 7 years ago. We recorded that. We didn't even have a singer at the time, and I moved to Utah to work at another game studio, so that band kind of dispersed. But when we were coming up with the Raiding DevSpeak, they were like, "Well, we need some metal music, so we got to contact some labels and get the licensing." And I'm like, "Nah, dude, I have a band that did stuff." And a lot of them were like, "Oh, great, we're going to get to hear Frostband." And then we played it, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually good." And it's myspace.com/chainsaw demo.
Chainsaw demo?
Chainsaw demo.
Okay.
That's, by the way, that shows you how old that is if I was going on to MySpace to post the music there.
How horrible was it eating the habanero in order to pitch WildStar? And if you answer this question, you get to pitch it to all the potential players out there and convince them why to go buy WildStar.
Okay, so it wasn't that bad, actually. That's why I ate two. The first one that I ate, it was a little spicy. It felt like a little bit of a kick, but somebody had kind of told me later that it kicks in at a later point in time, which, unbeknownst to me, I'm like, well, that's fine. So that's when I ate that second one. That was when it got a little brutal. Somebody had made a comment that I sounded like Batman about like 2 minutes in, and the only way to talk for me at that point was just like, seem to get beyond this. It was absolutely brutal.
At least there was no snot or tears or anything.
No, dude. What's funny, actually, there's a guy named Saul Lee here. He's the lead of the effects team, and he's like, "I heard you're going on Hot Pepper Gaming," and I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Don't look like a bitch." I was like, "All right, dude. For you, I'm gonna not look like a bitch. I'm gonna go on a Hot Pepper Gaming. I'm gonna kill it." And so, yeah. So in my head, I ate the first one, and I floating Saul head was like, "Don't look like a bitch." And then I was like, "All right." So I ate like the second one, went at it. But yeah. So
awesome.
that's kind of how I got to pitch WildStar while my tongue was in flames. But yeah, it was good times. So if you have not played WildStar yet, do yourself a favor, perhaps, and and play WildStar because it's got action combat, amazing housing, crazy ass dungeons, an end game for everybody. It's not just like we have it for the 1%ers. We've got loads of stuff for players of all types to play the game. We've got trade skills. We've got just adventures and loads of crazy stuff. Basically, if you love MMOs, you're going to love WildStar, and we've even thrown in some crazy ass combat that will make the experience actually fun instead of just hitting the one button 4 times to kill everyone.